Okay, okay. Now done, now done, now done. Abhi milega.
Yes, sir. It's live now.
Should we start? Yes, Rajiv, I think we are live. I think, yeah.
Yes, sir. We are live, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Good
sir.
afternoon, everyone, and welcome all of you to this platform on social media with the Haryana chapter of AIOTA. Every week, we bring to you one of our senior people presenting as a guest speaker, and also some other speakers who would like to share their previous research, research that they have presented earlier, may not have presented earlier, their dissertations that they have completed and qualified in, and we intend to share and disseminate something that that occupational therapists have already accomplished as a part of their graduate, postgraduate, or later on in their experience and at PhD level have accomplished in the form of any data-driven study. And we hope that this becomes a trend, this becomes a culture to do research work, to do something that is data-driven, and also to share and disseminate it with all other fellow occupational therapists, and also to the community at large, so that the advocacy for occupational therapy, the breadth and depth of occupational therapy is also made aware to the general community. So with that intention, today we have with us uh, my HOD, my senior mentor, my college principal, Dr. S.P. Mukashi. He is an eminent person in the field of occupational therapy. He has donned various roles in uh, his career, in his experience of many years. He has been a clinician, administrator, a mentor, an academician, a therapist, a teacher, a private practitioner, a researcher, and above all, my guide and mentor as well. So we like to, without any further delay, would listen to him and would like to know what his views are on his topic today, which is 4 decades of occupational therapy, his personal perspective. Welcome, sir, and the platform is open now, and you can start, please.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Manish. Am I audible now very clearly?
Yes, please. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
are.
Thank you.
You are.
So thank you very much, Manish, again for giving me, the platform here um, of your Haryana chapter of AIOTA. And it's a very good initiative that you have taken to have this kind of interactions on every Sunday. So you told me earlier, and this particularly you talked about the research perspectives which are being told by the people who have just completed their graduations or post graduation, or they are pursuing their masters or doctoral programs. So it's a very nice initiative taken by the Haryana chapter of IOTA. Two of your colleagues are present there. I really don't know them personally, but good afternoon to all of you and all the fellow occupational therapists and other people also who might be listening to this talk at a later stage also. Once again, I'll thank you, Manish, for introducing me to this audience. You have talked so many different, so many nice things about me while introducing me. So, thank you. Let us see how how our talk goes ahead further from here on. So, first of all, the flyer which you have put up there, which I saw it today after the morning, I think perhaps the flyer you have put my photograph there, where I might be looking a little more younger because that photograph was taken in probably in January or February of 2012 at a conference in Goa. So that was nearly 9 years since, and you can see the obvious changes that you can see at me. So at present, we can say that I am in a semi-retirement mode, but actively involved and interested in the profession and related developments. The topic here, like, I'm not going to tell you anything specific about some great scientific things or some new kind of theory. It is absolutely my personal experiences which I am going to share with you, which might be or may not be helpful to the people who are newly entering the profession or those already at some stage of their life, they're already in the profession. But nevertheless, it is always better if we can have an insight about how somebody else has gone through his profession or professional journey. So let me talk about my professional journey. Um, as the title of my presentation suggests, it's 4 decades. So I am calculating 4 decades in a way that is 1979, I took the admission into this course. And now this is 2020. So it's 4 decades where I am along with the occupational therapy. It's not that always I knew a lot of things. Even today, I really do not know too much about the occupational therapy, but it has been a very good experience so far. So let me briefly talk about my journey, professional journey. Some of the people might be knowing that actually I graduated from one of the oldest OT school, that is in Government Medical College, Nagpur. So when I took my admission in the OT education in 1979, so typically even today when students take the admission for the first time, they are overwhelmed by the kind of contents of the syllabus where you look at anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, general medicine, orthopedic surgery, neurology, so many different kinds of subjects and all those things. So I was in the same boat in 1979 when I was first time exposed to the studies of anatomy, physiology. Of course, we did not have biochemistry much or the pharmacology then, but we had anatomy, physiology, general medicine, general surgery, orthopedics, neurology, and psychiatry. So these were the subjects which are taught to us, and it was, did not understand exactly what kind of courses we are studying and why we are studying so many diverse kind of subjects. And my OT courses focused on the therapeutic use of occupation, purposeful activities, and craft activities, and some portion of the splint fabrication. So you can see that it is quite diverse things, which a young student, maybe 18 years of age, 17 and a half years of age, coming across to this kind of field. And I'm sure that all of you also you have gone through this kind of um, not necessarily surprises, but at least some kind of doubts, suspicions could have come to your mind. On one hand, you are studying this anatomy, physiology, etc., etc. And on the other hand, you are studying the purposeful occupation, therapeutic use of occupation, sometimes craft activities, and also some of the courses might having exposure to the splint fabrication. So then and even now, it is not changed much in terms of the emphasis during my studies was on the functional independence as well as the recovery of patients. But what I can say at present, now I can say that during that time, during the 1979 80s, I think that the OT was typically viewed only as part of the rehabilitation process, providing purposeful, recreational, and diversional activities. And you would may be surprised that we actually studied or practiced the printing press, the printing, carpentry, finger printing, finger painting, craft activities, etc. After completing my studies from the Nagpur Koti school, I started my career in Goa. That was my first place to work in Goa. That was so people now, those who have seen or heard about Goa would realize that it was definitely a good opportunity for me to start my career in Goa. I started working in a government medical college at Goa in the early 80s. There, our OT section was a part of orthopedic surgery department. I received my first-hand experience of handling variety of orthopedic patients, both traumatic and cold cases, but more number of traumatic cases than the cold cases. I was also, as part of duties as an occupational therapist, I was asked to do I was a part of the disability evaluation team. I did not know then how the disability evaluation should be done. So, but I was uh, told by my seniors that how we are actually practicing disability evaluation. So that there I got exposed to this new thing which I did not otherwise had studied in my course of studies in medical college at Nagpur. Here I saw that there was a separate orthotic and prosthetic unit which was manned by the P&O professionals. Therapeutic activities, exercises, weaving, and chair caning were predominant OT activities at the Goa Medical College OT department during that time. In 1997, I joined NIRTAR. If people NIRTAR, I call it NIRTAR. It is the full form is National Institute of Rehabilitation Training and Research. Now the name has been changed to SV NIRTAR. It's called as Swami Vivekanand National Institute of Rehabilitation Training and Research, which is a teaching institute. Right from its inception, the BOT program, because BOT program started in NIRTAR in 1987. So right from its inception, I was involved with the establishment of syllabus, restructuring of the syllabus, establishment of the program, getting it affiliated with the university, etc. etc. There are so many hundreds of things which were there during that period of time, which we did, not as a alone single person, but a team of people there. Now, initially this program was for about 3.5 years, which was later increased to 4.5 years. When I started my career at NIRTAR, there were not too many clinical services of the departments or sections available in OT department. OT department was functioning from a small single room. But gradually, over a period of time, with a lot of more people joining there, with a very good support from the management, as we expanded in academics, the clinical services were also expanding. And then a time came when we could have, I could proudly say that we were almost we were giving or providing almost all the contemporary OT practices in OT in our department at NIRTAR. Gradually, we could, as I said, starting from 3.5 years course, annual examination pattern, which was transferred or shifted to 4.5 years course, converted to semester kind of system. Then we naturally moved on to the master's program, and the MOT program was established at NIRTAR in 2002. Why I am giving this information, when I say it's my personal reflections, why I'm giving this information, because it would have some kind of parallels with the growth of profession all over the country. That is the reason why I'm talking about these particular milestones. In 1994, I had an opportunity through a scheme called as the Colombo Plan, which is kind of a scholarship, which is you can visit UK under that scholarship. And as far as my knowledge goes, I was the first occupational therapist who is going under this plan to UK. Prior to me, there are several occupational therapists visited UK under this particular plan, Colombo Plan it is called as, but almost all of them worked in the clinical setups there. I had opted for academic program, and probably, if I'm not wrong, I was the first person under this particular scheme to have been allotted academic program. And then I completed my postgraduate diploma in professional development from University of Belfast in Northern Ireland, United Kingdom, under this Colombo Plan. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
During my stay there at United Kingdom, I was exposed to the academic programs and the clinical procedures as they practice in UK, which was quite different than what we are following here. But I will talk about that later on. During my stay stay at UK, I came across an organization called as Sensory Integration UK. It was an association of the therapists who are practicing sensory integration therapy in UK. I was interested in that. I became a member of that association in UK, and the university people and the the British embassy people. They helped me a lot, and because when I told them I want to understand what sensory integration therapy is, so they allowed me, because those days in 1994 in UK they had sensory integration therapy programs of level 1 and level 2, and level 3 they used to conduct in USA, in California. So I had an opportunity to go through this both level 1 and level 2 courses. I did at Manchester and Southampton. After returning to India, one of the first things I did professionally was to introduce the concept of sensory integration therapy at Nirtar. And if I'm not wrong, Nirtar was the first government institution outside Mumbai to have a well-established SI therapy unit. Then later on in 2010, that is now exactly about 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to be a part of the team that started the first occupational therapy graduate program at the King Saud University in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I was again fortunate there to be instrumental in actually, what I should say, actually landing that program there and keep it on running. So I'm very proud again to say that the program is running very successfully till date. And the very first batch, the graduates who did the graduation from the first batch, they have gone outside their country and now they're doing masters and doctoral programs in other countries. They'll be returning soon to Saudi Arabia and they'll be taking over the reins of the academic programs in this university. My personal experience during the stays at both UK and Saudi Arabia was that the clinical system or the academic system is not very comparable to the kind of system that we follow. But I'm not going to say anything negative, or it is not negative there, but I can confidently assert that our systems are different, but they are at par with their standards, considering the unique socio-economic conditions of India. So that is about my professional journey. Then after this 2014, I came back to my place where I belong to, that is Nagpur. But I was here in private practice for some time. And again, I had a good opportunity to work in, if you know the institute called as Swikar, Swikar Academy of Rehabilitation Sciences. That is in Secunderabad. I was working there as a deputy director for some time, and I was overseeing the all academic programs they had in their institution, and they were psychology programs, special education, and speech therapy. So these two, they did not have the occupational therapy program. Anyway, that also gave me a lot of exposure and understanding about these allied disciplines. How, because the psychology program, what they had was right from the MPhil to the PhD. The special education program, they had both diploma as well as degree programs, and also master's program there. And the speech therapy, they had a degree program. So there also I could interact with these different professionals, and I could understand where do we stand in comparison to these professionals. So let us talk about now, what is the state of OT in India at present? And it is not simple statistics what I'm going to tell you about what happened in 1950, what happened in 1960, because already it's in the domain that everybody knows about that. I will talk about how I feel about the state of OT right now in India. As we all know that OT has been existing in India since 1950s, that is nearly 7 decades now, and I am fortunate to be part of its journey for the last 4 decades. At the beginning of my career in early 80s, I would say that there were very few OT schools, most of which were in the government sector. They were offering diploma as well as degree program. There was not much of uniformity. During the 90s, there was a spurt of new OT schools all over the country. The master's programs in OT started during the late 90s, and the regular doctoral programs in OT started in the early part of this decade. As the academic infrastructure grew all over the country, diplomas were replaced by the degree programs. In the last 4 decades, we have seen several ups and downs in terms of the OT programs. I don't want to talk too many details about these OT programs because a lot of people might be knowing about this, but several colleges opened, several colleges closed, and again people are coming back to starting the new colleges in the last, let us say 3-4 years again. So things are changing. So that's why I said there are lots of several ups and downs we could see. Particularly during the period of 1990 to 2005, I personally experienced that several fresh graduates as well as experienced OT professionals left the country in huge numbers. Now, this trend of migration still continues, but now it has become much more rigorous and difficult for us or people to go there as compared to during that particular point of time. Presently, as compared to 1980s when I was a student, presently now there are several OT programs. I don't want to give the number exactly because this is all fluid numbers at the moment, but there are several OT programs, both offered by the government as well as the private sector, and the number of the programs has increased as compared to the OTs. So where do we stand today as an occupational therapist profession or professional? We can see that the profession has steadily grown and it continues to grow. But the growth is not uniform throughout this country, which all of you definitely will be able to appreciate that the growth, that what is so-called growth of occupational therapy is primarily seen in the metros and urban areas, more so in the western and southern India, and definitely northern states are witnessing a very steady growth in recent past. According to the available statistics, I don't want to again go into the depths of the numbers, but I would simply put the available statistics. We know that out of the total population of the disabled in India, nearly 70% population still lives in rural area where our reach is restricted. What other major changes that have happened, that have taken place, which in a way affected OT profession in the last 4 decades? So I would say that the government's initiatives and the different acts which were passed by the parliament and central government, like for example, Mental Health Act in 1987, PWD Act in 1995, and the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act in 2016, the National Trust Act in 1999, National Policy of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. These regulations, laws which are passed by the parliament have definitely affected the profession, and instead of talking anything negative about that part, I would say it has also positively contributed for the growth of our profession. But in spite of all this, if you look at the number of OTs presently available in this country, the number of people who actually require the services, there is a huge gap. And we occupational therapists, we are not different from other professionals, I would say that. That is what a general trained human psychology is, that people really want, majority of the people really want to be in the urban areas, have all the possible benefits of the city life, have all the best possible benefits of the metros, and there are so many different other things which I don't want to spell out, but definitely people will usually prefer to be in the metros rather than the rural areas or semi-urban areas. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a huge potential for expansion of our profession and reach more number of people in this country. Now this is about what the professional growth we are seeing. Now coming to the very important part of occupational therapy profession, that is the jobs, the job sectors, what I have seen, what is my personal feeling in that. So I am going to put it in 2 different categories. One is the government sector, other one is the private sector. The government sector, I don't want to name the institutes or the hospitals or the colleges where the government jobs are available. But I just want to put it in the perspective that during the 1980s when I was a student, that there were not many jobs, OT jobs in government sectors as compared to what we are having today, and that I contributed to the steps taken by the different governments, central government as well as the state governments. My experience with NIRTA, is a central government institution, that it was because of the studies conducted by the central government. The central government felt that there is a great number of population disabled population which require the services by the professionals. So one of the steps that should be taken is to develop the manpower, and therefore these courses were started or inaugurated in national institutes from a very small number to start with, and today we have got a huge number of students being admitted to the national institutes at present. Now this, when I talk about the job part, so these several national institutes started offering the degree programs which created manpower as well as more employment opportunities within some of its academic establishments. Simultaneously, when the manpower is being created, the central government established the CRCs, DRCs, NHM, National Trust, VRCs, different types of CBR programs for supporting the disabled all over the country. These initiatives definitely created job opportunities for OT professionals. To a certain extent, the state governments also set up infrastructure in line with central government, several state governments, and then thereby generated the employment for occupational therapists. Again, I don't want to really put how many occupational therapists are working there because it's all different game together. But I'm just trying to say the government sector as a whole, not only necessarily the academic institutions, but all this, as I said, CRC, DRC, etc. And of course, then several other medical colleges, bigger institutions, smaller institutions in the state governments, etc. Now, coming to the private sector. Now, private sector is something much more different than the government sector. Government sector definitely people prefer primarily because it gives you stability, financial stability, and a kind of security, that job security is there. Whereas private sector, it has got both positive as well as negative, but we'll talk more about the positive part right now. I would say that the private sector, the first category I'll put as the current status of the healthcare industry in this country. The healthcare industry in India itself has undergone a lot of changes in the last 4 decades. The private hospitals, nowadays they call the multi-specialty, super specialty hospitals, corporate hospitals, all those hospitals have come in, and definitely because of the expansion of OT knowledge base, increase in applications of OT practices in acute and subacute domains, today we see that several number of occupational therapists working in such hospitals. Here I just want to add a word here about the technology. Now, does it mean that the occupational therapy practice has changed? Therefore, like as I said, when I took admission into this program, we were talking about the craft activities and other certain activities which are not seen as a standard practice in our day-to-day lives these days. So how come that the large super specialty hospitals, corporate hospitals started employing the OTs, where generally these hospitals give a lot of emphasis on, what I should say, that patient satisfaction, where patient gives the immediate kind of relief or some kind of satisfaction to the services that is received. Whereas earlier part, the occupational therapy was always considered as a part of rehabilitation, and you put it somewhere in the chronic stage of cases where they can be dealt with in a different angle rather than in the bigger hospitals. So what I'm trying to say is here the technology has definitely played its part. But as I said, technology has played its part, but technology is not something necessarily all of us associate with in everyday practice. We very often use the low-tech devices like therapeutic, sending units, pegboards, different types of aids, even today. But this is my feeling that the development in technologies has helped us. Our occupational therapists, they have been helped by getting acquainted with the high-tech technologies like the mobile apps, wearable devices, some large equipment which could be actually placed in the departments in the hospitals. Some of the smart technologies which have been used by the common people as well as the professionals, where, for example, like Amazon Alexa has been also used for automating our ADLs. There are some certain wearable devices which you can use right now very well on the patients and the department. Mobile apps have helped us a lot. And then, of course, definitely, as I said, several special equipment. I don't want to name the equipment because you will be aware of that, those things. So modern OT departments in the larger hospitals, in the bigger cities, they are equipped with these all technologies. So what has changed? The technology has helped us to gain more skills how to use this technology for the betterment of our clients. So basic fundamentals of OT has not changed, but the technology has changed. We have widened, we have increased our knowledge base, and we have acquired the skill sets to use this new technology. And that is what we see this now in this corporate hospitals or the super specialty hospitals in private sector. The second area which I could see that a lot of OTs started working in this, that is the schools. Schools here, I mean the schools which are normal schools, there are special schools where OT services have been established in the last maybe a decade or one and a half decades. Again, why it has happened? Because of the expansion in our knowledge base and probably some contribution to the legal provisions for mainstreaming the education of the disabled, particularly focus on the ASD and LDs. The third part of the private sector, I feel it's an NGOs. There are several NGOs which are funded or non-funded or fully aided, or they are running on their own resources or revenues. Several NGOs they do employ the OT professionals. And the last category where I talked about the private sector, I use the word independent practice. Rather than using the word independent practice, maybe some people will be happy if I use the word entrepreneurship. This is a kind of a new thing for our profession, and it is essential for OT professionals. So I would say entrepreneurship is another avenue for employment of self and other fellow professionals. However, I would definitely say it is the most difficult area for OTs to sustain and flourish because of the greater responsibilities. OTs in independent practice require a lot of skills outside their profession. The skills might be requiring the managerial, administrative, financial, and other skills. Again, what I've seen in the last few years, this independent practice has really picked up. Our people, occupational therapists, young occupational therapists, they have really taken into the independent practice very well. This has been done more by the young professionals. Again, this is more so in the pediatric area. And as I said earlier, this is seen more commonly in the metros or the large urban areas. Coming to the next point which I got in my mind, that is, what challenges do we face? What is the potential for us? And what is the future of this profession in India? It is my personal opinions what I'm going to quote here. When I took the admission in this course, and then I graduated and I started working and all those things, during all these years, I have faced or I have realized that there is struggle for our identity. Struggle, I mean, it is not only the misnomer of occupational or occupation word which is there, but in general, we have to struggle for our professional rights. It was there existing then. I feel it is existing now also. But if I could get through these struggles in the last 4 decades, there is no reason why our people cannot go through this. And a day will come, definitely will be in a much better position than what we are today. When I compare where we were 4 decades ago and where I am here, definitely we have definitely progressed. We are doing better, but then there is a huge scope for further expansion and growth of this profession. So the most important challenge that we face right now is the struggle. Right now, it is for the identity for our profession, which is there. It was there, and it may remain for some more time to come. Compared to the Western standards, there is a huge need, I feel, there's a huge need of OT professionals per unit of Indian population. Like the way they say, per million, there are so many existing, per million, there are so many required. In terms of the huge population that we have, definitely there is a huge need of OT professionals, but in reality, it is not so. So, what are the reasons for this one? I definitely feel the basic reasons for not having the required number of vocational therapists in this country is the unique socio-cultural and economic conditions of India. And the second part is there are limited opportunities in training and obviously minimal number of job positions in the workforce, organized workforce. So this is big challenge. Definitely, we have to appreciate this challenge is there, and we will have to fight with this challenge and try to overcome in future. Another challenge which I see that the OT practices as being done throughout this country, they are not uniformly practiced. So standardization of OT practices it is required, definitely is required. There is also a lot of overlapping with other professions. It was there then also, today also it is there, and the professions names have changed, or maybe more number of professionals have joined in, but then overlapping takes place, and there we are trying to establish our unique identity as a profession there. But I feel a point should come where we have demarcation of the professional boundaries. This can come if we have a council. Now, some states in India have formed their own councils, but it is imperative, I feel, to have a central council which can help us to standardize education as well as practice. Another big challenge, I feel that somehow we, as professionals, what we are lacking is we are not very actively collaborating with the government in policy making about our profession in general. I don't want to talk too many other things there because our national association AIOTA has been actively trying to address these issues, and soon I hope that we will see the positive development on this front. The immediate challenges that we face right now, apart from the challenges which I have already just now told, the immediate challenge that we face right now is the current pandemic, that is COVID-19. This has helped us to understand the new normals. Every day, we need to relearn, rethink, re-innovate, and reconnect with whatever knowledge we have got, with whatever client base we have got, the interactions that we have. In fact, this COVID-19, I would say, has come as an opportunity for all of us even to conduct this webinar, which otherwise in normal times we might not have conducted this seminar. So let us try to find out the opportunities which have come through this COVID-19. I would like to now wrap up my talk on a positive note. Briefly, I would just summarize that in the last 4 decades, I have seen many positive changes in this profession. On a personal level, I'm satisfied and happy to have made my contributions in a small way, both to my patients and students. Of course, it is not for me to say or estimate my contributions to the patients and students. During my academic career, I got a huge opportunity to be a part of students' lives during their budding years. I feel very happy and proud when I see my students doing very well in their fields, and many of them are now in leading positions in government sector, private sector, or NGOs, or their independent practice all through this country and as well as in abroad, or many countries in like USA. Even let us talk about only overseas. I would, instead of naming the countries, so in India and overseas. I'm very grateful to this profession, OT profession, for everything it has given to me. My humble suggestion to all the OTs will be to constantly upgrade our knowledge, skills, and qualifications. We should be ready to face the challenges of this competitive world. Most importantly, we should provide the quality services to our patients and clients whose satisfaction should be the only aim that we should have. With this, I will want to wrap up my talk. So all the best and have a good day. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very concise, very topic that has a very broad perspective, although, and you have been able to put it into as less words as possible. But it was definitely quite amazing to hear how it has been 4 decades back. How is it now? And I would definitely agree on your thing about opportunity in this pandemic. And you are very right to say that probably this webinar, probably these ideas are flowing in because there has been an window for these ideas to flow in.
Sure.
So the pandemic has definitely helped us as well in terms of broadening, in terms of new normalizing, creating new norms, creating new opportunities, creating new ideas, and has also given us some time to invest it into things that we otherwise would have not even thought about or would have not even imagined or dreamt about. Uh, so uh, while Rajiv and Pulkit, if you can just check if there are any comments on the live feed that we had that was going on till now on the FB page, I would also introduce all the viewers and also to you, sir, that the Haryana chapter of IOTA, along with me, we have uh, Rajiv Khanna, we have Pulkit Joshi as EC members. We also have Mohammad Yusuf sir. He's the treasurer of Haryana chapter, and I am in the president capacity. Haryana chapter has been registered autonomously in the state of Haryana. There were some changes in the norms through which we used to register earlier as per AIOT's directives. At the time when I was trying to get a branch registered, I was informed that from now on, it's a different way of registering. You need to register it pretty autonomously, although you are allowed to allowed to imbibe and follow the objectives, rules, bylaws of AIOTA, and AIOTA will support you with all the necessary documentation work. However, the registration of Haryana chapter of IOTA would be done completely autonomously as a separate body under the Haryana state laws, which we have done successfully.
Good.
And yes, we have done it successfully, and we have also started a project called EASY, which is a normative data study. It's not just about Haryana chapter, but for all so many other occupational therapists at the national level. We have initiated a voluntary data collection project in which a new standardized scale is coming up through the Thomas Jefferson University. I happen to be the Asia region lead for that normative data study. And my work was to ensure and connect with all occupational therapists of the country and not just Haryana to make sure that they get trained in the new tool. Of course, through the use of technology, there wasn't any requirement for me to disseminate training one-on-one or in a group or even through online. It's all there globally and centrally already available. It was supposed to be given to the participants as a part of videos and other uh, ways of collecting the information universally, globally, same way. So it was all pre-recorded, and the project is going on. uh, Due to pandemic, we actually got 1 more year to complete it, because otherwise 1 year back India wasn't able to collect and give data as much as we would have done. But now we are on track, and you would be happy to know that there are a lot of occupational therapists who are collecting at least five data or five typically growing children per therapist is the mandate of Easy Global Team. And there are so many occupational therapists who are in the process of completing their training part and also their application of those tools or tests, collecting the materials and application of this test on 5 normal children is quite progressively ahead, and we are sure we would be able to give this data to the global body by this December to 2020 or the early months of 2021. It has around 19 or 20 tests, which has a lot of materials. And again, these materials are not supposed to be bought or not supposed to be imported from states. They are supposed to be collected from the local resources.
Okay.
And there is a kit that gets developed in this whole process, which the tester ultimately is allowed to own as his property. And the person can then use this kit for further children as well. There will be only one thing that would be missing, which will be coming out of this normative, is the norms. So the norms would be global norms. They would not just be US norms this time. The tests would not be imported. They will all be already be available through your local resources. And there will be few tests that would use recent technology of 3D printing.
Very good.
Which means the printer here in India would have to be identified for quality, for the specifications that are required by the global body, and the soft copies and files will be given to the 3D printer. He would be developing the materials out of specific plastic material for textures, for shapes. There will be multiple shapes that will be generated by the printer here in India. And then the tester would be able to use those materials as his own property. There is a cost involved, but that cost is not going to a publisher or to someone who is owning the tool. The cost is only because if the material requires you to buy some materials like crayons or sheets or printouts or the 3D, which your own printer of your city, of course, more in urban possibilities are more in urban, would charge you. But it's again between your local vendor and the OT to manage the cost. There is no cost on importing or duty or customs or anything. So we have been able to do some trainings in that easy aspects as well, which we had shared on Haryana chapter along with our separate easy page.
Why don't you share this? I mean, you told me right now it's okay, but share a little more details with me. Maybe you can send a mail or some kind of brochure or whatever is there, so that I'll understand it more, and then we can have further interactions also on this topic, because it seems a very interesting thing.
Absolutely, sir. We have a series of detailed emails. We have a dashboard created by the global body, which anybody can access after registration, free of cost registration. There's a dashboard which anybody can access and can go through the training modules. All the training modules are very much there, and you can use it for any number of time. I'm not sure when the study gets completed whether the modules will continue to be there, but the modules are, as of now, they are very much there. After your free of cost registration, any occupational therapist can access those modules. You will also be happy to know that one of the tests was given to us to create a training video, and I, along with another occupational therapist from Varanasi, created a training video which is now going to the globally to all the occupational therapists for one particular test. So out of the 20 tests, there were one test given to 20 different regions to generate their own video, and which would be used for training purposes. So we generated a video, and that is part of those training modules. So when you see those training modules, you will see children and therapists from around the world actually. And one of those videos will be from India as well. I would definitely connect with you in detail, but I thought I'll introduce
it's very nice to hear, and I congratulate all of you here for doing this great job. Definitely, I would like to know more about this particular place and all the development that are taking place. So do share the information with me.
Sure, sir. We also have today with us Astha Goyal. She is a very active occupational therapist. She at some point of time, Astha has been a team member of Soch, and in that tenure of hers at Soch, we kind of produced a paper together which was then presented in a conference and has already been published as well. So I'll go on to Asta, but before that, I'll ask Rajiv and Pulkit, are there any queries? Are there any questions?
Sir, there are no queries as such, but a lot of sirs, juniors, and colleagues have sent their regards and gratitude, like Arpan sir, Jahir Abbas sir, saying that my gratitude from his eastern side. Sujata Missal ma'am has said that it is always nice listening to you once again, sir. And Anil sir, Anil Singh has said that it's always delight hearing from you, sir. Yusuf Mohammed sir has sent his regards. K. Naresh Babu sir has sent good afternoon and his regards. So a lot of people have connected and have been responding to the event very actively.
Thank you. Nice. Yeah. Good.
Sir, you will be able to read those comments yourself as well. I will be assisting you on how to access them, but you will be able to see those comments word by word on the official page of Haryana chapter of IOTA. They are very much there and they're going to be there.
Okay.
I now hand over to Rajiv, who is an occupational therapist working in Gurgaon, along with Pulkit Joshi, and who is also one of the EC members of Haryana chapter, to take over and introduce the next speaker.
Thank you, sir. So I would like to introduce our next speaker, Astha Goyal. She has done her bachelor's from IPH College in Delhi, and she has overall 6 years of experience in the field of occupational therapy. Along with that, she specialized in dealing with pediatric population and sensory integration. I hand over the platform to you, Astha. You can go ahead now.
Thank you, Rajiv. Hello, everyone. Let me know if my presentation is on screen. Just let me know so I can start off with.
Sure, Astha.
I hope it is visible to everyone. Is it still
connecting? Still connecting. Still connecting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Asa, can you try again? I actually switched, went to the multiple participant sharing just now. It was an oversight. Can you please, try again? Maybe go for share screen one more time.
I think it's already shared, sir, and my PPT is visible. Is it not visible?
No, it's not. It's not.
Yes. Now it has come.
Yes.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yes, it's here.
We can see it now. Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Asta Goyal. I'm an occupational therapist. And today I would be presenting my research paper, which was done in 2015. It is the effectiveness of a therapeutic preschool curriculum based on applied behavior analysis, sensory integration, and learning approaches in autism spectrum disorder. Beginning with, this study was conducted in Soch Center under the guidance of Dr. Manish and Dr. Malvika Sumnani. And as I said, it was presented in IOTA Conference 2015 and it was published in IGSR. So let us first understand what exactly is autism spectrum disorder. It is a neurodevelopmental disorder and children with ASDs exhibit qualitative impairments in reciprocal social interaction. They have restricted patterns of communication. They have stereotyped and repetitive repertoires of interest and activities. So there are basically triad of impairments in social interaction. The children are not able to socially integrate, socially interact with their peers. There are communication difficulties, and of course, there are imagination impairments. So, Jordan in 2005 said that children with ASD require direct teaching of social and attention alerting signals, like responding to their names, timing and dynamics of social interaction, structured, purposeful, holistic approach, unambiguous language instruction, and turn taking skills. So, all these are brief about what children with ASDs face. They are having difficulties in all of these. What was the aims and objective of the study? First was to adapt the therapeutic preschool curriculum to fit children by integrating techniques based on ABA, SI, and learning approaches. Second was to evaluate the effectiveness of therapeutic preschool curriculum program in a group settings on social skills of children with autism spectrum disorder aged between 18 months to 4 years of age. Then the hypothesis was there is no significant effect of therapeutic preschool curriculum in a group setting on social skills of children with ASD 18 to 48 months. An alternate hypothesis was there is a significant effect of therapeutic preschool curriculum program aged the same 18 to 48 months. Then the methodology was research design was pre and post test design without the control group. Then sampling was convenience sampling done, and selection criteria was based on inclusion and exclusion criteria. What was the inclusion criteria? So as I already said that children between 18 months to 48 months were taken into consideration. Then the children of both genders and children with provisional diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Whereas the exclusion criteria included children with very disorganized behavior, hyperactivity, which could be potentially injurious or unsafe to other participants in the group setting in the preschool curriculum setting. What was the procedure or intervention? So basically the school ran for the time span of 1.5 hours, and it included all the techniques, all the protocol with different types of verbal and physical prompts, and to ensure children receive the necessary amount of support and assistance. Then what was all included in that preschool curriculum? Let's see in the detail. So first was in 1.5 year our program. First was addressing an awareness of peers in the group. So when the children came, we greeted. They were all aware of the surrounding, what all was there. So first step was addressing an awareness of peers in the group. Second, we provided a free play time, gradually progressing to parallel and associative play. Third was the cleanup time, where all the children in the preschool they just clean up all the things around when they were having a free play time. Then after that there was a cleanup time, so to wind up all the things. Then there was a prayer and food time. In food time, there was sharing of the food items, there was asking for the food items. The children were sitting together and we included all these things. Then there was theme-based activities. So theme-based activities were pre-academic concepts. They were fine motor and craft. So these all were techniques were included. Then there was again SI principle. Based on SI principles, we did have some audio visual aids, like we have bubbles time, we had star time, we have music time. So all kind of audio and visual aids were also provided to the children. Then we were having the gross motor activities. So the gross motor activities included all the motor planning activities according to age appropriate level, all the kinesthetic awareness activities, all the physical activities are also included in the preschool curriculum. Then outcome measures is we use social skill checklist that was rated as almost always, often, sometimes, and almost never. So there were three domains, and under that there were subdomains. So let's see first the three major domains. First was the social play and emotional adjustment. Second was the emotional regulation, and third was the communication skill. If we see in the social play and emotional adjustment, there are three subdomains, that is beginning play behavior, intermediate play behavior, and advanced play behavior. Whereas if we see the second, emotional regulation, there are four subdomains, that is understanding emotions, self-regulation, flexibility, problem solving. And coming to the third major domain, that is communication skills. Again, we are having three subdomains, that is conversation skills, non-verbal conversational skills, and complements. So coming to the data analysis, we use Wilcoxon sign rank test, and all the subjects under the study were evaluated pre-intervention, the baseline level, and the post-intervention. The time duration was 3 to 6 months, and with the help of social skill checklist, therapists assist that. Here are the results which we can see. So name of variable, as you can see all the variable and their p-value. So beginning play behavior was having 0.002, intermediate play behavior was again having 0.002, advanced play behavior was having 0.041, understanding emotion 0.03, self-regulation 0.012, flexibility 0.011, problem solving 0.157, conversation skills 0.102, non-verbal conversational skills 0.039, and complements 1. So these were the values, p-values of the different domains. So let's see the discussion. So domains of beginning play behavior, intermediate and advanced play behavior, understanding emotions, self-regulation, flexibility, and non-verbal conversational skills have shown significant improvement as p-value was less than 0.05. As you can see the domains, you can see the significant improvement as the p-value was less than 0.05. So it definitely shows that play-based activities, if we apply in a therapeutic way, it definitely provides an environment of empathy, understanding, and also improves skills of eye-hand coordination, hand-eye movement, energy conversation, and kinesthetic stimulation. Also, comprehensive early childhood preschool curriculum promotes the development of basic regulation skills. If we talk about ASD, we are focusing on all areas. So it's not only improving the kinesthetic awareness part, it is building the basic emotional regulation skills also, and identifying emotions in others and self, refraining from aggressive behaviors, self-accepting consequences of one's behavior. Coming to the non-verbal conversation skill, which was also a domain used in the program, considered imitation to be an important dimension. So as you all know, many children with autism do not know how to imitate others. So non-verbal conversation skills used in program considered imitation to be an important dimension, and it is a critical tool in learning from others. So therefore, a provision of systematic training in imitating skills, like as we scaffolded the techniques of music, rhyme, sequence, sharing, physical prompting, along with incorporating use of intraverbal commands and tags that are part of verbal behavior under ABA in the preschool curriculum. So these are the citation and recommendation. So the time duration was varied for different subjects. Kids were also undergoing one-on-one session, be it fine motor language session, OT sessions. Then curriculum protocol adapted has contributed well in overcoming numerous difficulties of kids in the study, but it needs to be validated and made standardized. And also the question regarding sustainability of improvement gained by the preschool intervention. So these are some of the things which were the limitation. A future study could aim in incorporating curriculum-based strategies intervention program by stratifying the children as the severity of their complaints and problems. And study can also strongly emphasize to modulate the injurious and unsafe behavior of children with autism towards peers by again adopting a preschool curriculum as resembling to the current study. Also, the protocol of the preschool curriculum can be explored further, maybe for a longer duration. Previously, it was 1.5 hours. Maybe we can use long and larger sample size for better standardization and validation. So, what we can conclude that children with autism have always been among the most difficult to include in educational, recreational, and community settings. So, if we successfully embed kind of instructional strategies into preschool routines, it definitely supports children with autism. Also, as a holistic view, we can see these children. The preschool curriculum, as described in the paper, is a valuable framework in enhancing the caliber of social competence in exclusive community school settings for toddlers with ASD. So these are the differences. The social skill checklist, it was taken from Quill 2000, and these are some of the pictures taken during the preschool curriculum program, where we are having different kind of techniques like fine motor and craft, which you can see. We are having a study time, then we are having a cleanup time, then we are having a SI approach of having visual time, rhymes time, then we are having bubble time. So these are some of the pictures which you can see of the preschool curriculum program. Thank you. Stay safe, blessed, and healthy.
Thank you so much, Asta. It was a pretty neat and concise presentation. Rajiv and Pulkit, if we have any questions or queries, Dr. Mukashi, even you are free to put up any questions if you would like to. Pulkit, Rajiv, you are also free to have any queries. Any queries on the page, Rajiv?
Nothing, sir.
We are looking, sir.
No question. No queries with respect to the presentation, sir. Just
Yeah.
people have sent their regards and best wishes to the presenters and Mokashi sir specifically. A lot of Mokashi sir's fans and students have willingly been associated with the live webinar today.
Of course. I mean, we would start doubting ourselves if he did not have fans. Dr. Yusuf, sir, has always has been a pillar of strength along with Taru Thakur. She is also one of the key members of Haryana chapter, and they.
Where are they? Both of them. I don't see them here.
Dr. Yusuf is very much present in the Zoom meeting, sir.
I can't see him.
He has put his video to off. I did request him to put his video on.
Where is Taru?
Probably a camera shy person. Sir, Taru is very much present on the FB Live program. She has sent in her regards. She has also commented on the program. Like I said, I have on your WhatsApp, I have already sent you one screenshot of the program and also a link, which you would, if you would click on, you would be able to see your video, which right from the beginning, on also Asta's presentation, and also you would be able to see the comments that are there, which like Rajiv said, are primarily more to do with you and the goodwill that you have, sir. So if there are no comments, I think we have spent more than an hour very well. I was thinking that since we do not have the third speaker, which usually the format, sir, that we have thought of is one guest speaker and two other speakers. Today we had just one. But I was thinking that it may not be enough to fill up the time that we have, but I'm happy that we have been able to fill up the time very well, and we have been able to get some good information and good presentation as well. So once again, from Haryana chapter of AIOTA, thank you, Dr. S.P. Mukashi sir. Thank you, Astha, for a wonderful presentation. We hope
Thank
to
you.
see both of you again, as and whenever we both of us think that we can be here again on this platform, we would be ready to welcome you again.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
And to all the viewers as well, thank you so much for viewing the program live, and all the best.